Hello, and welcome to the Great Hobby Check-In of 2024. In this video, we're going to go through all of my major hobbies, the stuff that I like to spend my time doing, and just kind of see where I'm at with them. Am I enjoying them? Do I think they're going uphill, downhill, disappointing, exciting, whatever? I decided to make this video today and then just plunged ahead. I felt like I was just accumulating so many takes and so many emotions about so many different subjects that why not pile them all into one gigantic video and completely ruin the chance of this going viral for any of the communities involved, which is, of course, something I dread. I made this cool intro slide slash thumbnail, which includes elements of every one of the hobbies we're going to talk about if you want to solve and predict what they're going to be. But let's plunge ahead. I got a lot to cover, starting with the most relevant and meta one to this video, which is the Keats to YouTube channel itself. I think we are in kind of like a mid zone for the channel. We're up to 698 subs, which is very close to 700, which is very close to halfway to where I was on my previous channel, which was like around 1500. I don't know. I mean, I don't really make these videos to get views or to get subs. I just make them because I think they're fun to make, and it's neat that I have like a small fan base. I don't really want a big fan base. That sounds very stressful. This isn't really the golden age of the channel, and as far as uploads go, like in the past, if you can recall, it used to be standard operating procedure that the Keats to YouTube channel would get 2 new videos a day, every single day. I would be reacting to like every manga I was reading across a wide variety of genres. There would be all sorts of random ad hoc videos on anything you could imagine. Lots of just random Let's Plays and stuff. And nowadays, the video release pace is way lower. The videos haven't really improved in terms of they're still not edited, they're still not scripted, they're still kind of just rambling on. But I do think they've gotten better. Like, if I ever watch any of my really old videos, I just feel like I'm a lot less engaged. I'm not speaking as articulatedly. That was a joke. I'm less interesting. I don't have as many interesting things to say. So I think I'm like improving at this, even though I'm not really going in like a mainstream direction. I'm having more and more fun making videos when I get the chance. It really is just that I don't have time to record videos as much as I did in the past. But I'm pretty happy with like everything I put out. So overall, I think it's doing okay. I'll give this one an A-. Obviously, like the list of projects I'm able to complete is always dwarfed by the list of projects that I would like to do for the YouTube channel. If you watch the Dreaming of Neatsta video, I break down at length all the videos I'd be making if I had the time. But I'm finding more and more that I'm like really enjoying just kind of the load I give myself, and this is like kind of the perfect level of making videos for me. So I'm quite happy with it, but I know that there's more potential, more stuff to do, so A-. Next is watching YouTube videos, which is a major hobby of mine. I would say in terms of like different mediums I consume, this is probably taking up the most time. I watch maybe like an hour of YouTube a day. I usually watch videos in bed as I'm falling asleep. I'll have videos playing while I do work or I do chores. It's a pretty constant presence in my life, and I love it. You can make a lot of complaints about the state of YouTube at, like, the macro level, and I think those are all very valid and true. Like, the monetization system is out of whack, the censorship is completely bizarre and arbitrary, there's this whole insane war of people spamming fake takedown requests, and the actual content creators trying to reinstate their original content from these bullshit requests. I would say, you know, the infrastructure of YouTube and the logistics behind it are just steadily getting worse, which sucks, and certainly disincentivizes a lot of people that otherwise would be really talented, excellent creators from making work. So I think that YouTube is probably nowhere near as powerful and fun and full of good content as it could be. But it is still wonderful and fun and full of good content. There is still too much great stuff for me to consume. Too many channels that I like that are uploading regularly for me to watch everything. So my enjoyment of YouTube is basically at its limit. I also watch just the shorts feed algorithm somewhat often. I'm gonna get a glass of water. Which I have tailored to kind of deliver me stuff that I like, which is a lot of fun. You can easily spend as long as you'd like just eating from that trough of content. I think I made a really loud noise when I clinked this against a glass that was already on my table. Whoops. Yeah, so I'm like really happy with YouTube. There's creators I like that upload stuff every day, creators I like that upload stuff every week, and then even more creators that I dearly, dearly love that put up stuff just totally irregularly, and it's always such a treat to see like a new Bismuth video or recently a new Jenny Nicholson video. So I'm loving YouTube. That's an easy A+ for me. It is a joy every single day. As I said, could be a lot better if, you know, the administration of YouTube was better, but I can't complain. Moving on to other websites, we have Twitter. Now, Twitter is a shithole. I mean, we all are in agreement there. It was always a shithole, and then it managed to get like 10 times worse after the Elon Musk acquisition. The site frequently breaks or has features that are just extremely buggy. It's clogged with bots spamming porn. The blue check system has become totally useless in actually verifying anyone's identity, and instead just makes the reply comments to any section completely unbearable as the most idiotic people are floated to the top, and you have to scroll through hundreds of the most asinine at best and horribly offensive and evil at worst comments on any popular thread. Everything is spammed by engagement bait because of this really ill-conceived and fairly scammy program to like pay you for how many views your tweets get if you're verified. It's just like nonsense, man. So it's bad, okay? I'm not denying that it's bad. But at the same time, it's like a lot of fun. My For You feed, I think I have cultivated very nicely that I see a lot of very funny, very agreeable tweets on a regular basis. Yes, I get baited and I go into threads that I know will make me mad. But I think I've got a better attitude around it now in that I just block anybody who I think is stupid or evil. And I also have an extension that automatically blocks any blue check person, which I really, really recommend. It's called Blue Blocker. I think that alone makes Twitter like 1,000 times better and more usable. Unfortunately, you still have to see their tweets the first time, but as soon as you see a blue check tweet, it just automatically blocks that person and you never have to see them again. So I've probably blocked like tens of thousands of people, and for that, my tweeting experience is pretty great. I would not say my relationship with Twitter is super healthy. I'm definitely kind of still low-key addicted to it. I think I talked about this on the channel before, but for a while I like hard quit Twitter, and then I just found that I was like distressingly out of touch about all sorts of generally stupid things. And I decided, okay, I'll allow myself to go on Twitter on my desktop, but not on my phone, which I've kept up, and I think that's a good rule. Unfortunately, though, I still have binging sessions, often late at night, where I'm just scrolling, which is no good. But, you know, I think if I can keep those to the minimum and keep preventing myself from getting baited so often, Twitter can be quite a fun time. So I'll give it a C+, because it certainly could be a lot better. And I'm addicted to it in an unhealthy way, but it's a lot of fun. Okay, Reddit. So basically I go on Reddit to learn about upcoming Magic cards, news in speedrun communities, and news about Super Smash Bros. And sometimes I go to the general video game subreddit and see what news is there. And that's it. If I ever start using Reddit for anything else, I quickly start to believe this is the worst website in the world. The people on here are generally very stupid. Not entirely, not everyone on here is stupid. There's a large number of very good comments and very reasonable people. And on some of the subreddits I mentioned, people aren't so bad. But if you ever go into our all or our politics, God help you, or our world news, if you truly feel like doing self-harm, you will see some truly idiotic, evil, vile people. So I really try not to do that. Sometimes I feel tempted out of boredom or self-loathing or something. But if you can kind of stick to your interests, just specific niche hobby communities, and you don't read the comments, and you just kind of stick to gathering information, Reddit still works okay. Here I'm using like the old layout because I think the new one is a lot worse. And the mobile site is horrible now, and they ruined all the apps. So Reddit has gone severely downhill because there was a time when that wasn't true. I'm talking like 10 plus years ago, where you could kind of go anywhere on Reddit and see interesting discussions unfolding, if you can believe it, and learn interesting things. But it succumbed to the eternal September and worse, and now the whole site just kind of sucks. With few exceptions, like I mentioned. I'm sure there's other good subreddits too, even other good subreddits that pertain to my interests. But typically, even if they're good for like news and stuff, the comments are just so terrible. Like, conceivably, I would go on our anime to learn about upcoming anime and stuff. But I know myself, and I know I would read the comments, and then I would want to die. So I just can't. And, for stuff like anime, or music, or books, or anything else, I would rather look elsewhere. Because Reddit is full of stupid, horrible, garbage people. So yeah, I'll give this a C-. It's definitely a lot less fun than Twitter. And there's no sense in which I can kind of like cultivate it to only have interesting, like I'm sure I could cultivate it to only have interesting discussions if I subscribe to exclusively very, very niche subreddits. But that wouldn't really handle the volume of stuff I want to read because I am an internet addict. So I don't know. It is what it is. It's like functional. All right. Speaking of Magic the Gathering, let's talk about Magic the Gathering. So I engage with Magic in a variety of ways. I play Magic very seldomly these days. I used to play a lot, but, just with moving and different friend groups and stuff. Nowadays, I have, like, one friend group that I play with, and we exclusively play Proxied Vintage Cube or Dan. If you don't know Dan, check it out. It's sweet. I have an inclination that I'd like to make my own custom proxy cube and maybe some other decks, like a proxy legacy deck, and play legacy events somewhere that they allow proxies. I think I could have a lot of fun doing that. At the end of the day, I still do enjoy playing Magic. But I do not want to spend any money on Magic cards ever again. I've already spent way more than I ought to within one lifetime. And I'm just so mad at Hasbro and WotC and so disappointed by them that I just refuse to ever financially support them again. So yeah, on the level of play, it's basically non-existent. Just, a couple times a year meeting up with one group of people to play with fake cards. But it is a lot of fun. On another level, I engage with Magic YouTube content creators, specifically Thraben U and Bosch and Roll. I watch at least a few times a week. They upload videos every day of just playing Magic the Gathering online, usually in the Legacy format, and I really enjoy watching that. I just think Legacy is awesome, and the level of play is so cool, and just that kind of competitive card game meta is very fun for me to track and appreciate and engage with. And WotC has not managed to completely ruin it yet, and has actually made, I think, some fairly smart decisions around these formats lately. So that's like all good too, you know? These are both passing grades. Where Magic starts getting really, really disappointing to me is in the overall direction of the game, like I alluded to. I filled out recently a Magic the Gathering survey, and I left a very long answer in the one about how you feel about the overall state of the game, but it's not very positive. There's a lot of other very elaborate videos on this subject by people who are much more informed and much more invested than me that are worth a watch. But I guess I would distill it down to two major things. One is the commanderification of all design. And I don't just mean making cards for Commander. Like, obviously that's a major aspect of making Magic cards these days, because Commander is inexplicably the most popular format. I shouldn't say inexplicably, I know why, I just don't personally like it. Which leads to not just, you know, legendary creatures, multicolored creatures, things that feel very shoehorned into a Commander deck that already exists, or are just very straightforward. Basically, here is how you build around this card on a card. But I think it's also really led to design choices where, because they don't expect you to be playing a format with four ofs, and instead a format with just singletons, there's this impulse to make it that every card is always relevant no matter when you draw it. And every card kind of does everything. Nothing can just be a threat that dies. It has to also provide some sort of value. Things can't just be a targeted answer that, you know, is better or worse depending on the metagame. And you have to kind of trade off the ratios of sometimes having a dead draw versus it being very powerful in specific situations. You know, the stuff that I actually find very interesting about a competitive card game. Instead, all cards just have to kind of do everything at all times. It's very frustrating. I still think they do design really cool cards, but the ratio is much lower, and the ratio of these very bland, kind of offensively generic, or just so like panderingly quote-unquote cool designs that are just laser focused on only Commander players is making new sets come out from a mechanical design perspective much less interesting to me. Although, again, you know, there's some hits within those. I just think the ratio is getting worse. And then the other thing, which is even more disappointing, because, you know, the quality of a card game can ebb and flow, and besides which I'm only really interested in cubing and formats like Vintage and Legacy, which change very slowly and change in minor ways, generally. So, like, you can kind of just say, oh, well, you can ignore most of the new cards that come out, and that's true. As much as I'd like them to be interesting, they don't really have to be interesting to preserve the parts of the game that I like. But what I really don't like, and I have a very hard time just ignoring, is what I would call the Funko Popization of Magic. And of course, the biggest culprit here is Universes Beyond, where Magic is gobbling up every single license they can get their hands on to make... Oh my gosh, I'm so gassy. I had A&W for a late dinner. They're licensing all sorts of things, you know, Fallout set, Final Fantasy set, Marvel set, Lord of the Rings set, Fortnite set, which is the most appropriate of all. I'm getting mad and it's making me gassy. And it's like, this is what I put in my answer to Watsy in the survey. It used to be that it felt like playing Magic was like being ushered into this ancient library, and everything had this kind of mystique and this history and this depth to it. And as a kid, I really couldn't believe that, you know, not only did they have this amazing idea for a game system, which I think is just the best designed card game of all time, they also had the imagination and the ambition to make all of the card art so beautiful and to tell these stories and to weave these original creative worlds throughout the series. And nowadays, it's like, even when they do a quote-unquote original set, like this, Outlaws of Thunder Junction, it's just, like, full of fucking memes. God, every set now is just, like, memes and pop culture references and jokes and things that are, like, very blatantly trying to become, you know, viral or sell merch. It feels like I'm wandering into EB Games instead of, you know, this beautiful, rich library. I'm wandering into GameStop, and it's just a bunch of cruddy plastic crap on the shelves. It used to be that WotC would take a setting like ancient Greek mythology and come up with their own twists on it. You know, weave together original ideas and old myths, and not just, you know, the most popular ones, but the ones that they thought would be most interesting to explore mechanically and thematically, and to tell, you know, an original story that has themes of the ancient Greek stories, but is also purely original concoctions with new characters that they themselves create, that have personalities. And now it's just like dudes in different hats running around, ticking off a list that ChatGPT would generate if you said, give me 100 Wild West things. And they're all so on the nose and unsubtle and uninteresting. It used to be such a joy to research where all the little intertextual references that built up these new original worlds would come from, all the sources of mythology, legend, whatever. I think the last time they came close to this was Kaldheim, which I had other problems with, but since then it just feels like constant in your face, get it, get it, get it, get it. It's become so fucking Reddit. Yes, I am very disappointed in the direction of Magic. It does not feel like a piece of art anymore. It just feels like a product. And it doesn't really feel like a competitive game anymore. Or if it does so only incidentally as kind of a unintended consequence that emerges naturally from making a game like this, rather than anything they have any aspirations to actually design and build, you know, sets and cards with that in mind. So really, like, I have no connection whatsoever anymore to the decisions WotC is making. Like I said, there are exceptions. There were cards in, like, Modern Horizons 3 that I thought were interesting. Other ones that I thought were huge fucking mistakes competitively, but like I said, I don't think they really care about that anymore. And yeah, the game, as, you know, something that I once felt genuine passion and appreciation and awe for, I would say. I was in awe of what they were managing to do with Magic. A feeling that I had for decades as I started playing this game as, like, a little kid. That's totally gone now. Now I see Magic as a commercial product, which it always was, but now the stink of that is completely unignorable. And like I said, I will never spend a single dime on Magic the Gathering ever again. But I am more than happy to continue engaging with it in the small ways that I do, i.e. playing with cubes and watching YouTube videos. So overall, I'll give Magic a C-. Because, you know, this video is all about my own connection with these hobbies, right? It's not just about the state of the hobby in isolation, in a vacuum. If it was, this would be like a F. But because Magic is big enough and expansive enough and had such a good run that I can still have a fun hobby with it, engaging to the extent that I'd like to, I can't give it any lower than this. Okay. Alright, we had some really negative ones. Let's talk about something fucking awesome. Anime is so good right now, okay? And we've had, like, banger season after banger season. My back-to-back shows all the time airing that are awesome. My favorite studios, like KyoAni, Studio Wit, Science Saru especially, are just going ham all the time with awesome productions. There's, like, too many great shows that have come out in the last few years for me to even begin listing them, and so many other projects announced on the horizon. that I have very, very high hopes for. And then such a feeling of opportunity that at any moment something amazing could just pop out of nowhere. That sensation is as strong for me as it's ever been. We're even getting freaking Monogatari back. Shaft, that I thought was dead and had kind of made peace with the fact that the old Shaft may never be coming back, is apparently coming back. I don't know. I mean, maybe the new Monogatari will suck, but I kind of freaking doubt it. I don't know why they would do it unless they were confident they could measure up to the amazing quality of the anime in the past. So yeah, I got a lot to be happy with anime. The only problem with anime is that it's too time consuming. A lot of these other hobbies I can do like in parallel with other things, you know? Or I can engage with them for like very short chunks throughout the day when it's convenient for me to do so. Anime is different. Anime, you gotta sit your ass down for 22 minutes and watch. And it's not even like 22 minutes is a long time, but it's like enough that I'm perpetually behind on shows. There's shows every season that I am extremely interested in that I don't get a chance to watch. And that's not even mentioning the decades and decades of backlog of amazing shows that I've never gotten a chance to see, that I have access to, that I could watch at any time, and I just haven't been able to. Yeah, anime is like too good. It is an embarrassment of riches. We are in such a platinum age right now, I think, in terms of just excellent studios putting out excellent work, amazing manga getting adapted amazingly. I'm so happy with this as a hobby right now. Anime is so good. I mean, we had some dry spells over COVID. Shit was rocky. It's not like I'm, some massive anime optimist that says it's been sunshine and rainbows this whole time. We've certainly had some very, like, wandering through the desert type things, but now we are in the land of milk and honey. And I think we should celebrate that. S plus for anime. God, it's so good right now. I'm gonna watch some anime right after I finish making this long ass video. Believe you me. Oh, and following that up with manga. Manga's also so good right now. Manga is way more easy for me to consume. I can read it while I'm listening to music. I can read it while I'm chatting with people. I can read it on the subway. I can read it in bed before I go to bed and before I go to sleep. And there's just so much manga to read. I'm in like a real manga hungry mode where I specifically Jump. I've had this crazy obsession with Weekly Shonen Jump. I don't even know exactly what started it. No, I do. It was the anime Undead Unluck, which I liked so much, and then I read the manga, and I loved the manga, and then I was like, is Jump just full of amazing series I haven't really heard of? And then I read Sakamoto Days, and I loved it, and then I decided I was going to read everything in Weekly Shonen Jump, which I am now doing, and I decided I would make like a Jump database and research the history of everything that's ever been in Jump, which is what I'm currently doing, and going back and reading some classic Jump series. I've just become like a Jump maniac, and I couldn't be happier. But of course, there's a lot of other manga I'm reading as well. We're in a wonderful era of scanlation. There's so many active groups working on so many series, on top of all the stuff that's getting official simultaneous publications or being released in tankobons, like localization for manga I never ever would have believed would get this good. Like, even 10 years ago when Girlfriends was getting adapted, I was shell-shocked and blown away that the classic Yuri series were actually getting released in English officially. And now that's like not even notable. Now I would be shocked if Milk Morinaga's entire oeuvre hasn't been officially localized and released in physical books. We are just eating good with manga. I just love the hobby of reading manga. Like I said, I've been binging a lot lately and reading through old series or getting caught up on stuff, but what really appeals to me is just having my Manga Dex feed where I'm subscribed to like 200 series. So I'm a freak. And pretty much every day I check and there's like 5 or 6 new chapters of stuff to read. And that's just such a great joy in my life. It fits so well into my lifestyle, and it's such an amazing variety of genres and moods, and It's so good. And such a mix of release schedules too, because some stuff is coming out as it's released in Japan, getting scanlated right away, and that's like a nice consistent schedule that I can look forward to. Other stuff is like a surprise volume release of, Kosaku Shima, the businessman. And it's like, oh, sweet, I have a new volume of this series I really like, which just like landed on my lap. Or this, one of my current favorite manga, One Day Outing Foreman Otsuki, which is being very devotedly scanlated by this team of one who's been putting it out almost every day as a new chapter. It's mind-blowing, this release schedule, but I've been really, really enjoying this manga. Highly recommend it. I would recommend so many other things. I could talk about manga for hours and hours and hours, and in fact I do on other videos on this channel, and I'm sure I will in the future. Manga remains my favorite medium, and right now, as I think this one, it's not like anime. Manga has always just been killing it, and I have no reason to not think it will just keep killing it forever. Long live manga, long live Viz for simul-publishing Weekly Shonen Jump, long live Jump itself. I love manga so much, I'm losing my mind talking about it. Easy S+. Honestly, should go even higher. Music? If you recognize this album cover. So, I'm very happy with the music I listen to, but I am sort of disappointed in my music listening as a hobby in that it is nowhere near as devoted or informed or invested emotionally or time-wise as my music listening used to be. And I talk about this like every year when I put out my top 10 albums list. Oof. And I think music is like on the upswing for me because it hit a point where I really felt out of touch and that I wasn't seeking out enough new music and that I missed the feeling of being excited for new releases and having albums crop up in my rotation really frequently that I would just get obsessed with. So I've been very deliberately trying to integrate, oh my gosh, I'm so gassy, listening to more music into my lifestyle, which has been great. Like I've said before, it's because I don't have a commute anymore. Ever since I started working from home, that just cropped out a major everyday source of listening to music to me. And everything is like too close by in Toronto that even when I am going out to see somebody or do something, it's usually like a half-hour commute at most to the events, to and from. And that just doesn't add up to getting through too many new albums. But I'm doing better. This year I've definitely listened to a lot more new music than the year before, and even then that was more than the year before that. So I'm on the upswing. I feel like I'm getting educated again. I feel like I'm having periods where I just plunge into new genres or new artists or movements or whatever, which is something, was like the foundational reason for living throughout my teens. I was exploring music like that, so I'm happy to regain that a little bit. And then, in kind of broader music news, we had one of the most monumental events in hip-hop history. I don't think that's an exaggeration. In the feud between Drake and Kendrick Lamar. This, is basically the most critically acclaimed rapper of our generation, taking shots, like kill shots, at the most commercially successful rapper of all time, Drake. And I'm a huge Kendrick fan, so obviously I'm very much Team Kendrick. And okay, like, I'll admit it, I have listened to a lot of Drake music, and there's been some Drake tracks in the past that I've gotten pretty addicted to and quite enjoyed. But I would say I liked them despite the fact that they were Drake tracks. More just that I found them catchy and I found the production good or whatever. And Drake's actual, like, rapping presence was at best neutral for me. That's my, excuse. That's my cop-out. And I did really believe that he was a huge creep and probably, a predator and all these other accusations Kendrick was making. I privately, or, within my friend group and stuff, everyone thought that. I'm not from Toronto, but I live in Toronto. I'm from Ontario. I've been hearing about Drake since Drake had a career. And I've been hearing a lot of unsavory, unscrupulous things about him that entire time. And it's been so vindicating and validating and just wonderful to see this gigantic assassination of his character, to see all of this stuff be brought to light in ways that are getting spun in every club and getting people to sing along to lyrics calling out how horrible Drake is. It fills my heart with joy to see him taken down like this. Now, is his career actually over? Probably not. Will everybody forget about this in a year or two? I don't think so either. I think this is going to be a stain on him for the rest of his life. And whether it's a debilitating stain, probably not, but it's something, you know? He can bleed. This aggravatingly popular artist who has, for decades now, just exploited hip-hop as a way to make money, finally has suffered a blow. And, I'm just cheering for it. Ah, man, and putting aside Not Like Us, Meet the Grams. What a track. Even if it wasn't a Drake diss, even if it was totally removed from this context, it would still be one of the more powerful things I've ever heard. Yeah, so overall, very happy with music as a medium. It's striking me how silly this video is. Yeah, I'd give an A to music. There's so much good stuff out there. This would be higher, but it's, again, about my engagement with the hobby and the hobby's role in my life. And it's just not as much as I'd like it to be. I still want to push further into music. What the fuck am I saying? You know what's up. Alright, moving on. Movies! Again, this is a hobby where I just wish I had more time. I wish I had more time and more dedication, and I could see more stuff. Because there is a plethora of amazing things out there that I'm sure that I would love. And I get to see such a tiny fraction of it. I feel very happy, though, with my movie watching hobby as far as it, manifests. Insofar as I go to see a lot of movies. You know, I live in Toronto, and it gets all sorts of amazing screenings of both new stuff and repertoire stuff and cult classics and artsy pictures and foreign flicks and anything you could imagine. You know, if you live in a big enough city, you're going to be able to see. And I can barely keep up with the schedules for all these different theaters and what they're playing, and I couldn't afford, time-wise or money-wise, to see everything that interests me. But I still see a lot, and that's great. And, TIFF is coming up again, and I hope to see a whole bunch of stuff there, too. Oh, man. I guess the one thing, though, where this, deviates from music for me, both being hobbies where there is an overwhelming, endless supply of things that would engage me, is that for music, I have utmost faith that good music, music that could potentially be my favorite, will just keep coming out, because that happens on a very, independent level. A lot of my favorite music is just some dude somewhere doing something on their own. Whereas movies just quite necessarily require kind of a larger scale production and a larger budget and stuff. It doesn't have to be huge, but there does need to be some sort of backing, some sort of system in place to fund movies. And I am actually kind of pessimistic about the direction that's going in. And you can call me, hysterical. No, don't call me hysterical. That's excessive. But I don't want to be all, the sky is falling, but it's troubling to me the way movies are treated more and more as commercial investments and less as artistic statements. And it used to be that this was the perspective of just the big, most major studios, your Disneys and your Sonys and stuff. But now we see that attitude, the tendrils of it, slowly infesting studios on the tier beneath. A24 is the canonical example of a really cool studio that puts out a lot of daring experimental products, but it just got bought up by a private equity firm. Or I shouldn't say just, 6 months ago it did. that promised they would start releasing more commercially viable products. And that is devastating news. Hopefully, the ship gets corrected and the course is fixed, and that does not spell the end of A24 as a distributor. But it's not a great sign. In general, any sort of acquisition or buyout is just like money coming in to make things worse. I can think of very few counterexamples to that. So, for now, movies are great. I saw this recently. I saw the TV Glow. I loved it. An A24 release. But we'll see. We'll see. Right? There's certain things on the horizon that kind of freak me out. And again, there's still always going to be amazing, truly indie projects from the smallest rung of studios. And as it has been for decades now, generally speaking, the biggest studios and the most expensive products are going to suck ass. With some exceptions, I saw Dune 2 and that was a lot of fun. And I want to see the new Mad Max movie, Furiosa, looks great. But generally speaking, those are going to be products and suck ass. But it's in that middle layer that a lot of my favorite movies were born, and I'm really worried about that getting corrupted. Anyways, it's still an A-. It's still, a fantastic experience of art within my life and this whole world that I want to just keep exploring. But I imagine all of the trends I currently dislike will probably keep getting worse. Western TV, this is, after YouTube videos, the type of media I most frequently consume. I guess manga as well, but whatever. And moving picture media. Again, just as I'm working or doing chores or other stuff, I like to throw on an episode of a sitcom. Right now I'm watching through Cheers. And then there's also various Western shows that I keep up with and watch all the latest episodes of. Right now it's only Smiling Friends. But, I was watching like the Curb Your Enthusiasm finale, final season, which was excellent, and there's all sorts of sitcoms that are still airing, and, I'll watch their new seasons and be very excited for that. I think Western TV is in a great spot right now. I don't know, like, there was a big era where everything was what I'd call, like, prestige core, where it's all around, like, tension and twists and cliffhangers, and it's designed to kind of be, like, bingeable. And that kind of, like, I lost interest in that. I got very exhausted by shows like that, and I'm sure there's a lot of classics that I missed out on just because I didn't want to keep watching shows like that. But it's okay because, I can return at some point and watch Better Call Saul, and it'll still be phenomenal, right? And I'm working my way right now through Lodge 49, which is incredible. There's still, like with movies, a world of great older TV shows that I can really enjoy. I am a little worried about what will replace prestige core, which seems to be watch while scrolling core. A lot of like executives at Netflix and stuff have emphasized that they want to lean into shows that you watch in the background as you look at Twitter on your phone or whatever. That's not good. That's not a good trend. So this is a lot like movies for me, where I am super saturated with stuff that I'm going to like. I will never be complaining about an absence of things that I'll enjoy watching. But at the same time, there's some really worrying trends that make me feel like some of my favorite shows of the past couldn't be made today because of woke. No, just kidding. Because of capitalism and because of the absolutely insatiable greed of all of these television companies, shockingly. So I'll give Western TV as well an A-. It really is the same feelings I have around movies. But there's some good stuff. Like Cheers. God, Cheers is so good. This is just like the sitcom in my mind. Like, it doesn't get much better than this. Okay. Wrestling. Moving forward with Western visual entertainment. This is kind of a weird one for me to discuss because I wouldn't say I am like a primary consumer of wrestling. I am an indirect consumer of wrestling via my boyfriend. That isn't to say I don't watch wrestling. I end up actually watching quite a bit of wrestling, but I always do so with him, and we watch stuff that he's interested in. And that's just because he loves wrestling and he has good taste in wrestling. And I'm excited to see what he likes and what he recommends and what he's in the mood for. And as much as I enjoy watching wrestling, and, you know, if for whatever reason I wasn't able to watch wrestling with him, I'd probably start seeking it out on my own. But as much as I love it, there's no need for me to seek it out. Wrestling will come to me. And so because of that, it's like, my opinion of wrestling is sort of just proportional to how much wrestling we're watching, right? And based on that, it's kind of been in a slump. We went to a few shows this year. We saw AEW in Toronto, in Ottawa, and in London. And those were a lot of fun. They were good shows. But they weren't amazing shows. They weren't, of course, like the best things we've seen live by any stretch. I mean, Forbidden Door last year, that was a banger. And AEW in general, really kind of shitting the bed. With WWE possibly imploding and all of that talent trying to find some sort of exodus. This is the moment that AEW really should have been able to be primed and ready to run into the spotlight, to have their entrance music blaring and jump into the ring and hit WWE with a steel chair. But they're floundering right now. The booking is crazy, like, just shit nobody wants to see. They really aren't building up, like, any stars right now. I mean, it could be worse. At least MJF isn't champ anymore. That was a real dog shit era. But, you know, with some exceptions, their weekly shows are kind of filled with trash these days. Like, it's just getting worse and worse. And so I just haven't been watching it. It used to be that we would pretty often watch Dynamite or Rampage, or I would see, you know, particular matches from it that he wanted to watch. Now it's like, I don't think he's, like, barely keeping up with it. I said Rampage, I meant Collision, AEW Collision. The pay-per-views we'll still watch sometimes, and sometimes they're quite good. Like, the Sting retirement pay-per-view was actually really solid from front to back. But then other ones, again, they just can't seem to book good matches. And because the Canadian dollar is so weak relative to the American dollar, they're not going to do any pay-per-views in Toronto this year. Last year we saw Forbidden Door, which was, you know, a ton of fun and fantastic. So it's kind of like, I just don't feel so engaged with it right now. This time last year, we were prepping to watch like 4 or 5 live shows within the span of a month. And that was really exciting. And now it's like, meh. But I am only talking about AEW. And outside of AEW, obviously, there's a gigantic world of wrestling. WWE, as I said, is imploding because of all sorts of horrible legal issues, and Vince McMahon being the spawn of Satan, and Triple H being the spawn of Satan. But there's other stuff too. We're going to go see a GCW show in July. Nick Gage is going to be there. That's going to be awesome. You know, all of these other Western promotions, I don't think any of them are doing super hot right now, but they all put out some cool stuff. We watched a lot of cool indie shows around WrestleMania. In Japan, there's a lot of interesting things happening. They started this new Joshi women's wrestling. Joshi women's is redundant. You know what I'm trying to say. Marigold, which so far seems to be a total flop, but at least that's, like, interesting. And there's some other Japanese indies that my boyfriend is super into that seem to be doing well. And again, on top of all of this, it's like movies or TV shows or anime or anything really, where there is a massive backlog that at any time my boyfriend can show me a classic match that really is riveting and entertaining and awesome from the decades of wrestling that has been archived and prepared for our study and enjoyment. So I can't be mad at the hobby. I can't be mad at its role in my life. It just really is disappointing how hard AEW is floundering. Because I really enjoyed, like, following that as a company and following the stories within it and having this kind of excitement for, ooh, what are they going to do next? And now it's just like, oh god, what are they going to do next? So overall, I'll give wrestling a B. And I'm really curious what my boyfriend thinks of this kind of take, because obviously he's a lot more locked in. And as I said, my perspective and the things I know are kind of filtered through his conversations with me and stuff that he shows me. So I'm curious if he is more or less optimistic, or how he's feeling about wrestling in his life. But that's me, and I'm at a B. Moving on. AI toys. So I wasn't really sure what to call this hobby, if you can even call it a hobby. But for quite a while now, I have been pretty invested in checking out the latest AI developments, either reading papers on what kind of stuff is being done theoretically and behind the scenes, but even more so just playing around with new tools and toys that they put out as public facing demos. And you can see, if you look through my YouTube, as far back as like ChatGPT 2, I think even further than that, videos about like neural style transfer and stuff. I've been engaging with it on this level for probably over 10 years now. And I gotta say, the novelty's almost totally gone. I'd say all the way up until like DALL-E 3, I was actively looking forward to each new demo release and being able to play around with it. Again, I am not a big time AI advocate in terms of like, this is a useful product, this is an ethical product, this is a revolutionary product. I don't believe any of those things. But I do enjoy playing with them. I think it's very fun to just try to create weird, silly things with various AI tools and to make videos about them and to kind of explore their capabilities. But yeah, I don't know. It's like partially just the backlash against AI has me feeling less enthused to dive into these things. Certainly much less enthused to make videos about them. And the novelty just really is wearing off. It's just so saturated now. It doesn't really impress me when an AI does something impressive. Even if I like know it's impressive, that's just not kind of the emotion I get out of it anymore. And then this is like a frame from Sora, the upcoming video model, which I think will have a public demo probably by the end of the year. And I don't know. I just like don't even really care. I think maybe even just a year ago, if that was coming out, I would be so excited and brainstorming all the different videos I would try to get it to make. And now I'm just so apathetic because they've just bombed so hard on like the productization, the marketing, the PR, everything. OpenAI especially, but other AI companies like Google's AI rollouts have been disastrous, and it has just soured this technology in the minds of so many so irreversibly. And it kind of sucks because it is fun. And occasionally I do still really have fun. Like when Suno, the song generating model, came out, I had a lot of fun making songs, you know, writing really goofy lyrics and then saying hardcore 90s gangster rap. It's really a lot of entertainment, but it's just the magic is totally gone. The novelty is barely there. And once they've done videos, like what's left? What could possibly impress me again? I don't know. I could be wrong. Certainly, if you had asked me to make any predictions about what AI could or couldn't do 10 years ago, I would have been wrong about everything. So maybe I'm wrong again, and there is going to be some huge revolutionary technology around the corner. But I doubt it. So I'll give this a C. And the C, it's not lower because I'm sure if for whatever reason I was like, it's time to make a bunch of pictures in DALL-E, or it's time to make a bunch of songs, or when Sora comes out, for whatever reason it's like, you need to spend an hour making videos in Sora, I'm sure I would have a hoot. I'm sure I would be laughing and sharing stuff with my friends and going, oh my god, look what it made. But I just don't see myself doing that. It's just been so soured. So it's like, yeah, the toy is going back in the box. Video games! You can tell already from the image I used that this is not a positive one. And here I'm very split because let's do the positive first. The indie game scene is phenomenal. It's extremely vibrant. There are so many games coming out that I would absolutely love to play. Basically, any like gameplay element that I enjoy, I'm sure I can go on Steam and find dozens of examples of games that really scratch that itch. And that's all great, and that makes me happy. But it doesn't really do that much for me because I don't have time to play these games. And likewise, there's a huge backlog of other games that I would be happy to play. But I just don't make time for them in my lifestyle. I just do not play that many games. The ones that I do play, I actually really enjoy. And you'll see we subdivided this a little bit to talk about some particular genres and stuff later. But you can also kind of look at keeping up with gaming as a whole as a hobby, which is kind of more what I'm talking about here, and just being open to the prospect of playing games, kind of having games that you're consistently playing through as a hobby, which, like I said, doesn't really fit into my lifestyle, but it's something I'm like interested in and something I would ideally be doing. And with all that said, yes, there is an infinite pool of indie games, which is wonderful. But everything outside of that kind of sucks right now. The major like AAA genres have all been kind of sublimated and destroyed and ripped to shreds and repurposed into like games as services, live games. Basically, every studio chasing the same bag simultaneously of the idea of infinite player retention and infinite player monetization. Extremely foolishly, extremely short-sightedly, not considering whatsoever that if you all make a game that expects the players to play it 50 hours a week, they are going to choose 0 to 1 of them, and therefore none of them can sustain a healthy player base, and they are all doomed to failure. But again, the psychotic, schizophrenic greed of corporate America knows no bounds, and they are not to be withheld by foolish things like mathematics or physics, and instead ridiculously overspend on these absurdly long development cycles to make games that look like pieces of trash and have nothing interesting in them and are just designed to try to trick some amount of people into paying money. It's terrible. It's all terrible. Now, there are occasionally AAA games that I am told are good. Or like I'll watch my boyfriend play a recent PS5 game and I'm like, yeah, this is cool. Like I watched him play through some of Spider-Man and I'm like, yeah, this is pretty sweet. Like it looks cool and you do a lot of cool stuff and the technology is amazing. Dude, the fast travel in that game, like, it doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't feel physically possible. There's some pretty cool feats being done with modern gaming. But ones that I think are actually using that power in an interesting or creative way are very, very few and far between. And even when they do, they are not personally interesting to me. Like, I was very impressed by Spider-Man, the game for PS5, Spider-Man 2, but I would never play it. That's just not a genre I'm, like, interested in, right? The genres that I'm interested in are pretty much exclusively served by indie games these days and by Nintendo. And Nintendo, IMO, is like really slumping right now. And maybe that's a hot take because obviously stuff is still selling well. And they're putting out, you know, in some ways big name games. But aside from Mario Wonder, which I did love Mario Wonder, it feels like they're really just coasting. That stuff is selling so well that they don't even want to try. And they're kind of holding everything back for the Switch 2 and for some extremely rainy day when they need like a big pick-me-up. They're being, you know, I've heard people say this before, but I think it's true. Nintendo is at their worst when they're succeeding. You know, it's when they're desperate that they start really putting out heaters. And you might say, but the Thousand Year Door remake, it's a remake. I don't know. It's a great game. I love that game. I played through that game like 5 or 6 times. On the GameCube, like 20 years ago. And sure, it's great if people are enjoying it for the first time because of this, or reliving some nostalgic thing because for whatever reason they didn't want to go back and play the GameCube one. But, like, it's not a new game. I feel like I'm crazy. Why are people so excited about this? It's not a new game. Same with Super Mario RPG. That's one of my favorite games of all time. That was a hugely influential game on me. It's the first RPG I played. It's like neat that they're acknowledging that it exists, but like, why would I be super excited to buy that? I've already played it like 80 times. I feel like there's some major fandom disconnect between me and other Nintendo fans where I just don't get excited for re-releases. I don't know. Although maybe I'm being a little hypocritical because what I do get excited for is when they add games to the Switch Virtual Console. But that's because it's portable. And I suppose I could play these other remakes like portably too now, but like I don't know. I don't want to pay money for them at least. The Virtual Console is great because I already paid for it. It's free now. I don't know. I feel crazy. I'm very excited for the Nintendo Direct though coming up in June. But yeah, overall it's not been an exciting time for Nintendo, which in basically for me that means it's not an exciting time for big budget video games, period. And the indie game market looks great, but I don't have time for it. That's the summary. And then the whole industry is just like a massive, horrible shit show that's just hemorrhaging money and is totally unsustainable. You know. So we'll give it a C. That all averages out to a C in my in my book. Alright, let's talk about specific video games. Super Smash Bros. Melee, baby. My favorite game of all time. The game that has completely defined my adult life in terms of the connections I made through it. I love Melee. And this is actually currently one of the longest breaks I've ever taken from Melee. Outside of a few times with friends at like parties and stuff, I have not touched a controller since February, I think. And there's not really any like grand reason for it. I'm not planning on quitting. It's not like I thought, you know, I was too into it before. I would go to like a couple tournaments a month before this. But I don't know, I just really haven't been in the mood, and I think that's fine. I expect at some point in the future I'm gonna want to play again. And I think that's kind of healthy, like, to not try to force myself into some level of commitment, to try to expect some level of improvement from myself. I'm just playing this game for the vibe, right? I just want to go and hang out at tournaments and have some fun sets, and if I play well, great. If I don't, I'm gonna feel like shit, but it's not that big a deal. So yeah, it's been interesting to kind of take a step back from the community and just to have this sort of waxing and really waning relationship with actually playing the game. That aside, the Toronto community is phenomenal, and it seems like it's doing really well right now. We have several weekly tournaments and other regionals, and we just hosted Gommel, which was a great super major. I didn't actually attend this year, but I had a lot of fun watching it at home. So everything in terms of my immediate vicinity with the game is great, even though I'm not playing. I think, though, Melee is like too good. The community is too good. The longevity is too good. The game itself is like way too good. And it can very easily take over your entire life if you let it. Melee can be the only game you play, the only sense you have of self-worth and improvement and ego can be derived from Melee, can be your only friend group, can be your only avenue of socialization, period. It can dominate the content you watch in tournaments or other creative content, which is usually excellent. And this is, like, kind of scary. I don't think I am at all at risk of this. But there's a big incident unfolding in the community right now that is all perpetuated by someone who had a really dangerous, unhealthy relationship with the game and with competing in the game and with their ego being bound up with their game self, you know, their Melee player persona. And it's gone completely off the rails. And this has been unfolding over years, but it's really hit a peak lately. And I don't want to get too much into it, but it's just really sad. And I think it's a good reminder of just how powerfully, dangerously addictive and all-consuming this game can be. But I can't fault Melee for that. Like I said, it's because Melee is too good. So that's been kind of a negative of the scene lately, like keeping up with kind of the social aspect of Melee and following top players on Twitter and reading about these developments and stuff has been really distressing and really infuriating, to just kind of see how much of a train wreck the situation is and how poorly certain subsets of I don't even want to say the community because it's mostly like outsiders, but there's been some really, really horrible takes in response to this that have like really, really frustrated me and upset me. So that aspect of Melee as a hobby for me is not so good right now. But putting that aside, you know, I watch all the big tournaments. I watch notable sets. I watch clips and highlights and stuff. And that's all still great. I think one of the greatest strengths of Melee, and part of what's made it last for so long, is that players build fan bases and reputations and notoriety and legacy, not just through winning, not just through actually just taking the W, but through playing in such a dynamic, bold, creative, risky way, and that the game is open to this and rewards this, has such a customizability, such a high skill ceiling, such room for creative outlet and for personal expression through play. And I think the meta is in a very, very healthy place for that being at the forefront, that we're seeing such a rich variety of styles at the top level, such character diversity, such amazing moments in so many different sets. Mango, my all-time favorite player, is playing pretty good these days. You know, he's not in absolute peak condition, but he's definitely back to being a threat to win a major tournament. You can see him improving every time. It's such a great feeling watching the rises and falls of Melee, and basically, and this is kind of a general rule, the better Mango is playing, the better I feel about Melee as a whole. On the flip side of that, there is one top player I really don't like who has never ever in his entire 15 plus year career of Melee played in a way that is bold or creative or risky, and really has no intents whatsoever of winning fans through that sort of self-expression. Instead, he plays in like a very boring, reprehensible way that I am so sick and tired of after watching it for over a decade, and seeks instead to build a fan base through onstage antics and an extremely fake, extremely over-the-top personality. Maybe fake isn't the right word, exaggerated at least. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. And then, you know, just on another level, like, I'm friends with a decent number of top players. I've hung out with, you know, in tournaments and stuff, with people, and whenever this person comes up, I've just never heard a positive story. I'm not trying to gossip, I'm not trying to, like, slander. It's nothing, like, cancelable, obviously. I don't think this is, like, a bad person, and, like, morally, but a very cringe person. A person that I have no interest in befriending or anything, in opposition to many other top players that I've met and thought were really cool. So... It's like, the better Mango does, the happier I am with Melee, but the better this other player does, the less happy I am with Melee. And they just announced that despite being a popular Ultimate streamer, they're actually going to take a 90-day hiatus from playing Ultimate and focusing on Melee with the goal of getting back in the form to win Super Majors. And I sure hope it doesn't work, because I get so pissed off and offended every time I have to watch this person play. Every tournament, I am praying and begging to every god I can think of that they get eliminated as quickly as possible, and they don't make top 8, and I don't have to see them. And so far, the gods have not answered my prayers, but we'll see. But this is, on yet another meta level, my passions here, the depth of hate I have towards this playstyle and seeing this person play, I think is really what makes Melee so engaging for me. Because, like, check this out, okay? Melee is 20 years old now. the people who are playing it have been playing it for a long time, and they're just going to keep playing it. There's no sense that, oh, eventually Melee 2 is going to come out and the whole community is going to switch to that. So that alone sets it apart from almost any other competitive game. At the same time, it's also just never going to get patched. It's going to get like pseudo-patched through very small, very incremental rules changes that get debated endlessly around controller legality and other minor modifications to the game, which does impact like balancing and viability of strategies and stuff. But generally speaking, this is the game. And it's going to be like this indefinitely, okay? And what that inspires in me is a feeling that when I'm watching top level play, I'm not just like watching Mango versus this other player. I'm seeing the future of Melee get decided. I'm seeing vividly before my eyes how the metagame might evolve, what the first sparks of style changes and viability and what players will tend towards, what characters are good, what stages are good in what each matchup. Those are things that are getting decided dynamically every tournament, which is so engaging, especially when there are directions that you do not want the game to go. There are characters that when you see them in top 8, you really feel like the game is dying. And if top 8 was all this character, there would be no future for competitive Melee. And it's like you're seeing the game fight to survive, fight to keep this legacy, fight to keep these qualities of dynamicism and flow and creativity that keeps people tuning in and learning the game and going to their local tournaments and striving to improve. Like, it's just this amazing little fragile flame that has burned for 20 years, and some stupid pink orb could snuff it out with a back hair at any moment, and you're just clutching. And you might think you're being dramatic. You are becoming the very person you warned against, that's this obsessed with Melee, that is this passionate and devoted to Melee. That's alright, yeah, guilty as charged. But it's a great tournament watching experience when you're that invested. It's like a rush like no other, when you really feel like this game that you've loved since you were a child is being decided. So as much as I hate this player and their character, and I hope to never see them win a tournament again, I appreciate the dynamic they bring to the game, the dynamic they bring to the viewing experience. So overall, I'll give Melee an A. Like I said, following the community drama has given me like an intense stress migraine over the last week, because some people are just evil or clinically stupid, and I am very worried about the potential of more victories by a certain person, which we have not been subject to for a number of years. But the Mango's playing good, and when Mango's playing good, you can't give it anything less than an A. Other platform fighters, so I really only have played Melee through the vast majority of my game-playing life in terms of this genre, but I am interested in branching out. Been playing a lot of P+ in the last year or so, again, kind of on a break now, but I definitely plan on returning to it. I think it's a fantastic game. If you don't know, it's the kind of pseudo-sequel follow-up to Project M, which was a very popular, very famous mod of Brawl to make Brawl play a lot more like Melee. And then they just went so above and beyond with all sorts of really cool additions, brand new characters, brand new stages, brand new gameplay mechanics, such that it really is its own thing now. And I think it's an amazing kind of bridge between Melee and then this huge world of other platform fighters. It's just familiar enough that I can really sink into it and feel like my Melee skill is transferring, while still having so many fresh things, new characters, new matchups, that it's all the fun of playing a new game. So that's been great. HDR, which is the same thing kind of, but for Ultimate, also been very fun. I really wish I got the chance to play that more. It's such a crazy, huge game. There's like 81 characters. Absurd. I don't know how anyone is expected to get good at it. Everything is so fast and fluid and dynamic. It's just mind-boggling, but pretty cool. There's been some flops. Multiverses is this extremely high-profile platform fighter that's just totally flopped. As far as I can tell, it looks awful. The game pace is so slow. There's a lot of truly baffling mechanical choices in it. There's been multiple, like, trivial day one infinites discovered. I don't know, man. It's really sad because it has some of the best IP that a platform fighter could ever hope for. You can play as frickin' Shaggy and Batman and uh, who else is in it? The Adventure Time lad. I don't know. The roster is like incredible, but I just don't think they're going to be able to figure out the gameplay in time. And this, of course, joins a long laundry list of platform fighter flops. Some of them really high profile, like Nickelodeon All Star Brawl. It was basically the same story, and then they made a sequel. But the one I do have high hopes for is Rivals 2, Rivals of Aether 2. I got to play this a little bit lately, and it's really neat, really neat. It feels really nice. I think outside of Melee and P+, it's just like the most intuitive, fluid, natural feeling platform fighter I've played. I think the mechanics they've chosen to implement are really smart and can lead to some really cool dynamic gameplay without like overcomplicating things or kind of having like forced cool. It feels very open to express yourself and to come up with your own dynamics. So I have really high hopes for Rivals 2. I hope it can build a good community and hit the ground running. Not having a recognizable IP, it's an uphill battle, you know? They have to sell you on these original characters. Obviously, they have the fan base from Rivals 1 coming into it. I think most Rivals 1 players are pretty excited for it. I know there's some reservations as well about, you know, changes and stuff. That's always how it's going to be. But it's more about, like, can you get somebody who isn't invested in this franchise, maybe isn't invested in competitive platform fighters in general, or maybe just has only played Melee up until this point, to give this game a chance, because I think it's really worth a chance. So I'm really excited for this to come out of beta and get a full release, and I don't know, I want to get good at it, I want to play it, I want to sweat at it. So yeah, I don't know, overall I'm very happy with the state of platform fighters in general. I'd like to get more into more games. P+ as well will eventually get rollback, and I think in-client matchmaking, just like Melee has, and that's going to be possibly life-ruining for me. I could see myself playing that a whole lot. I just am so eager to improve in that game and try different characters and figure out different matchups. I don't know. It's all good. A+ for this. Whew. Alright, we're getting there. Moving on to rhythm games. I don't play that many rhythm games these days. I was just in Japan, and I didn't actually play a single rhythm game the entire time I was there. It just didn't really work out scheduling-wise, and it just wasn't something I was prioritizing. And I used to have, you know, very regular access to, like, an ITG cab. Now that is very scant access. Some other rhythm games, again, I can play very infrequently when I get the opportunity, but I certainly am not, you know, as convenient a player as I used to be. At the same time, though, I feel very excited and optimistic for the future of rhythm games in Toronto because of this local arcade, Toronto Evolved, which is a rhythm game-focused arcade. It's like private access. You have to buy a membership. I haven't actually bought a membership yet, but I'd like to in the future. I don't know. It's like, it feels like something is coming. That a new era of playing rhythm games may emerge for me. I would like to get a pop-in controller at some time and really seriously grind pop-in. I'd love to get a dance pad at some point if I can make it work living in an apartment somehow. I don't know. It's like, on the one hand, it feels weird to even call this a hobby because I'm not super engaged in the community and I don't regularly play. But on the other hand, I'm just so still excited about rhythm games and love learning about rhythm games and following the scene of rhythm games. And everything there is just so exciting. You know, there's a new DDR coming and ITG has all these amazing competitions. And look at this game, Music Diver. I hadn't even heard of this until recently. And then I watched a bunch of footage of it and it looks really fun. So rhythm games I'll give a B, right? Like, barely part of my life. Wish it was more part of my life, but I feel good about the hobby. I feel compelled to engage and stuff. So, it's a B. Daily games. This is actually the genre of game I play most frequently. Typically, sometime in the morning when I feel kind of locked in and I don't have anything else I need to do for the next 10 minutes or so, I will knock out my regimen of 5 daily games. I play Guess the Game and Framed, where you have to guess the name of a video game or the name of a movie. After seeing different screenshots of it, you have 6 guesses. I typically win these around 60% of the time. I'll be able to figure it out by the end. But it's definitely getting harder as they run out of the most famous movies and games. You can tell they're being kind of strategic. Obviously, they're not just working down a list from popularity, but it's a blend of more obscure niche things and more popular things. But I definitely think it's trending more obscure as they, go through hundreds and hundreds of different games and movies and stuff. So I'm a little pessimistic about it. The day may come where my win rate starts to plummet, but we're not quite there yet. And then I play Bandle, which is very fun, a relatively new daily game where it gives you a MIDI of a popular song, one instrument at a time, accumulating in a very fun synthetic choir vocal cover, and you just have to guess what the song is as quickly as possible. It's a lot of fun, and I can get it most of the time, but oh my god, it can be infuriating. Just that real itchy brain feeling where it's you know what it is, but you just can't picture the words that the person's actually saying. You can go, I know what the vocals are going to sound like when they come in and be totally right and still not think of the name of the song. So it can be, sometimes I want to rip my hair out. Other times it just clicks for me just from the drum track or whatever, and I feel like a genius. So it's a fun one. I end up playing it a lot less frequently than the other ones because I need to be someplace where I can listen to my phone speaker. But it's always fun when I play it. Then I play Food Guesser, where you have to guess the country of origin of a dish from pictures and then a description and then the name of a dish. And you get clues as to the geographical relative direction and closeness of the countries you do guess. I love food. I love learning about the origins of food and cuisines and stuff. So this was a natural fit, and I really enjoy it conceptually. I think it's sort of a flawed game insofar as that it mostly just becomes a geography game past a certain point where you're trying to remember, okay, which country is very close south of this but north of this. It's more of a geography game than a cuisine knowledge game. And there's only really a dozen countries that they'll choose from. I think because if you chose more obscure countries, it's too hard. You'll get those occasionally, but typically it's going to be one of the big European countries, one of the big Asian countries, Brazil, Nigeria, North America, or United States, which I think is fine, but it makes it feel a little repetitive. So it's okay, but I'm mostly just into it because I love food, and I just love looking at pictures of foods and learning about new foods. So I'll keep playing it. Then we play Connections. So all of those ones I just mentioned up until now, I share my scores with my boyfriend and one other friend. But Connections is a lot more popular. I know quite a few people that play it, so I end up sharing my Connections score in one Discord server and this group chat and with my mom and with another friend. It's a little tedious, but I don't know, it's fun, and then it's fun to discuss in all those different zones. What they chose for today's puzzles and categories and stuff. If you've never played this game and you're living under a dang rock, this is all the rage lately. You have 16 different words, and you have to find 4 groups of 4 that are connected. And there's always 4 colors that indicate the difficulty or kind of obscureness or abstractness, lateral thinkingness of each connection, starting with yellow, which is usually very basic and obvious, all the way to purple, which is a really kind of roundabout way. So I'll show you this one because it's after midnight, so this is no longer the one. The yellow is options, stocks, equity, shares. Took me a second. So, you know, pretty obvious. It's all things that mean shares in a company. And then the purple one, by contrast, is likes, apartment, insults, and shovels. And those are all things that digs could mean. Isn't that great? I don't know. I love connections. I have so much fun with it. I would say 75% of days I can get it without making any mistakes. Maybe another 20% I make like one or two little oopsies because I missed something or I dreamed up a phantom connection that wasn't there, which they do try to make you do, like followers, shares, likes. You're thinking, oh, it's some social media thing. That's a rabbit hole. That's a red herring. Anyways, yeah. And then very occasionally, maybe like 5% of the time, I completely blow it. And I totally missed what it's aiming for. So it's hard enough that it makes you think, but it's easy enough that it's like satisfying. And then finally, I share with the same number of people the mini crossword, which is this miniature version of the New York Times crossword that you can finish typically in like 30 seconds or so. And that's a lot of fun. It's very satisfying to do it super quickly. It's a nice competition with all these people that I know that also do it. We're always racing to get the best time each day. Sometimes you can get really insanely fast times where you just know all the acrosses and you're just like, it feels great. You got like 10 seconds. And then other times you get a dirty double crosser where both the down and the across, you have no idea. And you're just staring at it or guessing random letters. So it's every day it's a surprise. Anyways, as you can tell probably from the length that I went into this and how excited I was, I'm a big fan of daily games. It's a great part of my life. I thought probably after like a year or more of doing this, we've been doing these sorts of daily games for almost 2 years now, I would get tired of them. But so far, no. We've kind of like rotated games in and out. But I like this set of 5. I'm down for this set of 5 for quite a bit further. They're not flawless, as I've said, but they're a lot of fun. Let me know if you know any other cool daily games. There's so many out there. If I had infinite time, I'd probably play like 50 every morning. But I like to learn about them. I think at some point I'd like to make a video just about daily games and what I think makes a good daily game and the just variety of options out there and, you know, different assessments of which ones are hard, which ones are easy, which ones are big time sinks, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, daily games I'll give an A-. Honestly, I thought I would have given it a higher grade. I forgot I gave this only an A-. I don't know. I mean, Food Guesser could be better. That's for sure. And sometimes the crossword puzzle has a real bullshit clue that I think is made a little erroneously or something. Whatever. Anyways, that's daily games. Reading. This one's kind of a disappointment. I used to be a very voracious reader. Again, when I had a long commute, that was typically a time where I'd read books, like actual novels or nonfiction or something substantial. Nowadays, as I said, my commutes are shorter or non-existent, and typically when I'm in a situation where I could be reading something, I don't have the luxury of just like fully sinking into it, but I have to be kind of like half engaged, like, you know, riding on the subway, or whatever. I don't know. I can't think of many good examples, but basically all of this is to say that I read manga. In all those situations, I read manga. And I read so much manga, and that's great. But big, substantial novels have certainly fallen by the wayside much more lately than they have throughout my life. And that's sad. Because of all these mediums with huge backlogs, there is perhaps none larger, more intimidating, but more full of reward and promise than books. Pictured here is what I am reading now, Against the Day by Thomas Pynchon. I'm probably like 35% of the way through. I'm really loving it. It's a phenomenal book. It just completely captures my imagination and locks me in. And I've had similar fantastic reading experiences, even in recent memory. But it just doesn't happen with any sort of consistency anymore. It's not just built into my lifestyle as much anymore. which is a real shame. Which is a real shame. It's something that I need to deliberately correct, kind of as I have with listening to music, and start truly setting aside time to read, or taking excursions just to go sit in the park and read, or something like that. I aspire to do that, but it hasn't totally happened yet. Because, like I said, I'm enjoying this novel. To be fair, it's very, very long. It's the longest book I've read in quite a while. So I don't, blame myself for it being slow going. It's very dense and arcane and cryptic as well. It really requires your full focus and attention. Um, but yeah, very slow going, long gaps, long breaks, and it was a long break between that and the previous book I read as well. I don't know. It's not an unresolvable problem. I'm not like in the pits of despair about it. I'm sure I can incorporate reading better into my lifestyle. Like making this video was kind of a wake up call for me that that is something really important to me that I want to do. So hopefully we'll get there. But for now, it's a B minus. I'm still doing okay. I'm very happy with myself of plunging into this book as much as I have, but it could be better. Speaking of the written word, politics. Now, this takes on many forms in my life. The biggest one, of course, is reading Twitter arguments, which is not great. It is very far from what you would consider activism. It is only kind of the outer edge of what you would consider education, and instead is just sort of a dopamine receptor milker where I get to just spam a feeling of self-righteousness within myself by reading idiots on Twitter and then reading people I agree with responding to them and proving them wrong and going, get his ass. Yeah. And then, of course, there's other things. I have, political discussions with my friends, and I read political articles, and actually really try to get informed and learn the history behind things. I do actually do some activism. I go to protests, but not as often as I'd like to, not as often as I should. Again, it's just something that you have to really deliberately make time for in your lifestyle, and it's something that my ability to do so really wavers. So I kind of feel like disappointed in my own level of political involvement. And then to the extent that I feel politically active and politically informed and opinionated and engaged, it's like, I think I'm fairly politically literate. I think I have good takes and have become very educated on a lot of issues. But my reward for doing so is endless misery. That basically everything sucks shit and is probably just gonna get worse. And I won't get too into it because that could lead to a rant that eclipses the rest of the video in length. But it's like every single topic right now is pretty dismal, and there is no reason to be happy about anything. And that's why I have so many other hobbies to distract me and amuse me. So politics is the big D minus right now. Again, I'm not doing myself any favors by primarily engaging on it through Twitter, which is just the brainworm machine. And, instead, I could probably feel a lot better about politics if I was involved with local organizations and actually doing things that I think will affect positive change and all of that. But I'm not. So politics is now just kind of this horrible ghost that lives in my head and torments me. And I think that is true of so many people right now, and there is no good solution because the powers that be are against us and want us dead. And that's where we're at right now. I'm looking forward to that American election. Two worst candidates you could ever imagine. Alright. Cooking! Here you can see a dish I made recently. I would say this is very typical of a genre of dishes I really like to make, where I buy some sort of ground meat, this time ground beef because it was on sale, get a bunch of vegetables, chop them up, throw the meat, in a pan. Just cook the hell out of it until it's all kind of this slurry. And then dump a variety of sauces and chili oil and kimchi and spices and just keep throwing things in there and tasting it until it tastes delicious. And it looks really ugly, and you could maybe barely call it cooking, but it's pretty healthy overall, really. You eat a lot of vegetables, which is great. And it's delicious. And I can make a whole lot of it at once and eat leftovers. And that, I would say, yeah, is like the primary chunk of my cooking right now. And the real shame is that cooking is not even the primary chunk of my diet. I eat out way too much. I make zero-step cooking things way too much. Just because it's so convenient, and in Toronto there's so many options, so many things I enjoy. And now that I'm living on my own, cooking just feels way less meaningful or rewarding if it's just for myself. Because there was an era when I was living with people where I was cooking really frequently, like typically at least once a day, sometimes like 2 or 3 times a day, and making very elaborate, often multifaceted meals. Sometimes making meals without even the express purpose of having leftovers, which is like, I couldn't even picture doing that these days. But just a meal for that meal. And it was extremely rewarding. I wouldn't say that lifestyle was flawless by any stretch. I'd say overall, I really, really prefer my current lifestyle. But the cooking aspect was great, and I really do miss it. The other major factor is that my kitchen here is way worse than my kitchen used to be. I just have way less counter space. It's a big pain. And so yeah, cooking has really fallen off. It's disappointing to me because my diet would be a lot better. I would save a lot of money. I would be able to make myself a lot of delicious things. But it's not terrible either. It's not, non-existent. I do make the effort to make this sort of very simple, very practical meal for myself relatively often. So it's in kind of a mid-ground. I just don't feel the inspiration to cook right now. Or rather, I feel it, but I'm not motivated to act on it. I still watch a ton of cooking YouTube videos, especially cooking shorts. I still think a lot about dishes. I still love going to the grocery store and thinking about different recipes. I still very much have like a passion for cooking. I just don't have the lifestyle or the opportunities and definitely not the drive to realize that passion as often as I should. So I'll give this one a C+. It's so much worse than it used to be. The kind of glory area of me cooking all the time. And I don't expect to ever get back to that because, again, that lifestyle was pretty unhealthy for other reasons. But I would like to cook more. I hope I can make myself cook more. I hope I can, really prioritize this above convenience and above laziness and stuff. Today is a great example, a great negative example. I wanted to cook something. I couldn't decide on a dish. I talked to my boyfriend about it. I started feeling a little more inspired. I was looking at recipes for inspo and stuff. I kind of had a plan in mind. And then I found out A&W right down the street doing 2-for-1 whistle dogs, which are delicious. It's a hot dog with bacon. So I went and I had 2 hot dogs for dinner instead. It's not good, man. It's not good. So, I don't know. We'll get there. We'll get there. Do I even fancy myself a writer anymore? I've written, several books and short story compilations and stuff. For a while, I was a really manically possessed, intense passion and overwhelming urge to write. Hypographia, they call it. And that's mostly gone away for the better. But at the same time, it's like I just kind of have this idle feeling of I ought to be writing. It's so rewarding when it goes well. It is still like the most fulfilling feeling I've ever felt. I don't know if that's like an exaggeration or not. It's certainly up there of writing something and going, that was good. And I miss that. I miss that. And I'm making almost zero effort towards it. I do think about stuff I'd like to write. You know, I come up with story outlines or characters or scenes in my head, which is an improvement because for a while I wasn't even doing that. But the actual idea of sitting down and writing out a short story and a novel feels very, very distant from me, and I'm not sure what needs to change in order for me to actually buckle down and write again. I don't know. I hope it'll happen. I think I do have something great in me. I really do believe I could write something that I'm really, really proud of beyond anything I've done so far. I just don't know when it's going to happen, and I don't know how it's going to happen. But I want to keep kind of pressuring myself. Not unreasonably, I'm not going to beat myself up about it. But I want it to be there in my mind, this idea of, could you write about this? Is this a good story? Is there something here? And it's not like I don't write at all. You know, I'm kind of coming at it from a lot of different angles, where I write, you know, slides for my anime reviews. I write outlines for other things, other creative projects can involve a lot of writing. I have a job that involves a lot of writing, but it's all marketing materials and stuff that I'm not really all that interested or proud of. But I still do a good job on it, and I still kind of flex that muscle of writing, and I write, you know, frankly speaking, I think really good articles on stupid subjects. I write out ideas for stories to a friend of mine in our DMs. You know, I'll write out dreams I have, and then how I think that dream could transform into a short story, and then we talk about it. And we flesh out the ideas, and it's great, and it's very fulfilling, and it's very exciting. And then it always ends with him going, you should actually write this. This isn't a bad idea. There's something here. You know, he writes stuff. He wrote 2 short stories in the last month or so. But I can't bring myself to do it yet. It's just not happening. I don't want to be like, oh, it's a writer's block, because it's not like I'm sitting there with a blank document open like this and pounding my head. I just don't even try, which is even worse. So this gets a D. And the only thing that saves it from being a lower grade is yeah, you know, as I said, there is various forms of writing that I do, but that's not what counts. There's a step that's missing. There's a step where this actually becomes a true writing project, like the ones I used to make years ago, and that's the bridge I haven't crossed yet. So it is what it is. Other creative endeavors, the big ones are making video games and making music. I think about this stuff all the time. I ideate. I make documents describing things. I sometimes can vividly picture in my head gameplay or literally just hear in my head songs that I'd like to make playing. But that is like 2% of the process. And the other 98% is hard work. And that's the part I don't do. Because learning these programs is really hard. And you cannot just vomit your idea. You can in words, but that does not, through any magical process, turn into the final product. And that's, where I'm lacking. It's still rewarding to ideate on this stuff and to kind of plan in your head how the project will unfold. It's also in turn frustrating when it doesn't come to fruition. But I'd still rather do this than nothing. I would still rather kind of have this channel of my brain that is constantly thinking about a video game idea, is constantly building on it and thinking of content and scenarios and stuff, or have this fixation where lying in bed late at night or early in the morning when you're kind of half dream, half awake. I don't know if this is a common experience or not, but I really can just hear new music that I just kind of very barely flow and direct. And I'm sure it's not really real. You know, like I'm sure it doesn't actually sound like that, but instead it's just the sensation of it dwelling so deep in my conscious mind that it seems so much more amazing than it is. But it's a great experience, even if it is frustrating that I can't take the next step and bring it to life. So I don't know. It's a space I just need to keep exploring, trying different tools, trying to learn things, trying to figure out my options for creating different things, and hopefully just find something that clicks, a creative process that I enjoy doing, that I can master to some extent, and that can really allow me to express myself. I don't know. Sometimes I feel very doomer about it because I wanted to make music and make games for, you know, as long as I can remember, basically, and it hasn't come to fruition yet, so it's like, why would it ever? But at the same time, it's like, that's how everything goes. It doesn't happen until it does. And all it takes is, you know, the right attitude and the right idea and the right circumstance and the right set of tools, and we could be off and running. So hope springs eternal. I'll give this a C+. Exercise. Whew. So, not great. I used to be really into running, and I played a lot of ITG, or Dance Dance Revolution, you know, like physically active rhythm games. And that felt great, and I really enjoyed it. It was very fulfilling, you know, you get all those endorphins, you get that high. It's like nothing else in the world. And then I completely fell off, stopped doing any stuff like that, gained a lot of weight, and since then have just made very kind of like feeble, infrequent, doomed to fail attempts at getting back into it. It's really frustrating, a really, really uphill battle when it comes to this stuff. Like, the first times you go just suck ass. And then this is what I experienced recently. Even if you get yourself in the routine where you're going like every other day or even every day for like weeks on end, it can just slip away from you so quickly where you just kind of don't go one day. And then the next day you say, well, I didn't go yesterday, so maybe it's not such a big deal that I don't go today. And then the third day you go, oh man, I missed 2 days in a row. I really got to go today, but I have to do X, Y, Z, you know, oh, I don't have time to exercise and then take a shower. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do, I just can't. And you make an excuse, and then that's 3 days in a row. And then when the fourth day in a row comes around, it's like, I guess it's over. And it sucks. And that feeling sucks too. That feeling hurts just as badly as when you go and your body screams at you for trying to make it move. So I was trying to run because running is my favorite. And I wanted to get back to where I wasn't running. And it was so demoralizing that I was so far away. And then people I know that are into running told me, oh, you should not actually be running because you've gained so much weight that it's actually really bad for your joints right now. And you need to like redevelop your leg muscles more and ideally lose some weight before, you know, getting back into running, which was, again, really demoralizing and not what you want to hear. But very true. and running did suck and hurt really badly. So what I started doing instead was going on the recumbent stationary bike. And I liked this because I could play video games. I started playing Suika game while I was on there. Also as a way to curb my Suika addiction, I promised myself I can only play Suika while I'm on the bike. And this was a whole odyssey that I won't even get into now. But this was working pretty good for me. If I wasn't playing Suika, I could read manga. I could play some other game. I could watch YouTube videos. It's great. It's basically like being at your computer, but you're burning calories and you're building up your leg muscles. This was like ideal. This was exactly what I ought to be doing. And I still stopped doing it. I don't know. Maybe I'll go tomorrow. I dropped my Rubik's Cube. It would be great if I went tomorrow. Well, I don't know. I hope. If not tomorrow, the day after. And if not that, the day after that. And then hopefully at some point, every day again. But that's exercise. So I'll give myself a C. You know, probably it should be even lower because I'm not doing it, and that's what counts. My therapist gave me what I think is really good advice, where instead of holding myself to any standard of hitting the gym and doing this and burning this many calories, instead I should aim to just not have 0 days. This is a really good philosophy, I think, where you just make an effort to do something that's exercise every single day, even if that's just like walking to a place, even if it's just doing some sit-ups in your room. Just have no 0 days. And I thought that was really inspiring, because then it's like, even if you're not actively making progress towards your goals, even if it's too hard to have every day make it feel like you're one step closer to getting back into the best shape of your life or something, you know, at least you're offsetting some of the opposite direction. You're preventing it from getting that much worse today. And that was very inspiring to me. And again, that motivated me to do various things for a while. And then I, again, just kind of fell off. And now I have all sorts of 0 days. C'est la vie. But again, at least I have a route out. I have the opportunity to use this recumbent bike. I have all sorts of stuff that I can do on my phone or my Switch that's fun. All the ingredients are there. All the pieces are there. I just have to do it. So I don't want to give myself a grade lower than this. And I think all those fits and starts where I do keep it up for like a week at a time, that does count for something. I am proud of that. I still go for long walks and stuff. I am proud of that. In Japan, I walked a lot. I am proud of that. It's not nothing. It's just also not enough. So I'll give it a C. All right. Let's end things on a high note. This is like the hobby. This is so much the hobby that it really isn't even a hobby. This is what takes up more time than anything else combined. Is socializing. Hanging out with friends, hanging out with my boyfriend, chatting with people online, hanging out in Discord servers, going to events, going out for dinner. All this stuff will lump together in a category called socializing. And it's great. I have no complaints whatsoever. My social life as good as it's ever been. I've got a lovely summer full of activities coming up. I have so many friend groups and so many different relationships with different people that I do different things with. So many aspects of my life I get to share with so many different people. I feel so blessed. I feel so blessed by friendship. And you know, it's sometimes emotionally intense, and being a good friend means being there for people, and that can be a lot, but it's fulfilling. It's the most fulfilling thing in my life right now. It might even be more fulfilling than writing. Yeah. This is the core of my life. This is the heart of my life. This is really what it's all about, and it's wonderful. So just to end the video on a bit of positivity, yeah, socializing's great. I don't know why I chose this picture. I just saw this raccoon on the way back from my boyfriend's house a few days ago, and I thought he was very cute. It's very symbolic of Toronto, I think. Yeah. So, I don't know. Overall, life's good. A lot of complaining in this video, but I don't know. The grades are generally pretty positive. I do feel pretty good about most of the things I'm into. And I feel pretty good about my relationships with pretty much all of them. So yeah, things are good. And then the things that aren't good, I'll improve. There's definitely some stuff that I wish I had included now. Learning Japanese is one. Maybe one around like... What else? Visual art is another hobby that has really fallen off. I would definitely give it a low grade. But it's something I want to get more into again. And learning Japanese, as I said, probably would also be around like a C. Like, I'm doing some stuff, and I'm kind of keeping up my familiarity with like kanji and vocabulary, but I'm not making the effort to take further steps. I guess another one would be like taking classes. Right now we're taking a film class, me and my boyfriend, which is really great, and I probably should have mentioned that during the movie slide. But in general, I really like taking classes. and I'd like to take more, fit that into my lifestyle somehow. Just cramming in everything I can, hoping I don't burn out. Maybe one for like visiting galleries and stuff is something else I'm very interested in, and something else I'd like to push myself to do more. But this video was long enough already. Thank you for checking it out. You know, I'll put timestamps in, so hopefully there was a few things at least where you're curious and wanted to see my takes. If you went through the whole marathon of me yapping about my hobbies, I hope you enjoyed it. I don't know, I'd like to do this again, maybe in a year. Check in where I'm at on all these things. I also just really like using these little grading symbols that I made for my Shonen Jump review video. I wanted another opportunity to use them. Okay, that's all. Let's keep it under 2 hours. Bye-bye.